Claire, why don't we start
I
with
could
you?
say that
Oh yeah, go on.
sorry, I'm just like,
Sorry.
I've got my lemon water, I'm ready to go.
Go on then. Yeah.
um, I can say that I was pleasantly surprised that I think I'm already very in tune with what I'm spending my money on. And I don't think I realized that until we spoke about it, and that somehow I do have a stop button when I know that I'm veering in a direction that I shouldn't be going in, and so that was nice. Just this kind of illumination that I'm actually on the right road.
Mm.
That was my
And
takeaway.
and did either you three go through that that kind of exercise whereby you're working out exactly how much you're earning and therefore looking at what your purchases are? We
Yeah,
spoke about money as
it's
life energy, didn't we? And therefore, okay, so if you're
right.
spending money on this and that, are those spending habits in line with your values? Does that kind of come into play during your day-to-day purchases when you go down to the shops and things like that, or is that changed any
Well,
of that?
in all honesty, I'm a freelance creative, so I don't have like a steady income that's coming in that I can really count on. And every moment I know, okay, I've got this much hours, this much. So it was harder for me to make that kind of calculation. So it's just more kind of a general, like really intuitively, actually, sort of dipping in and going like, does this feel right, to purchase this or do this? So it didn't end up being like an absolute number or a scale, but I felt like I could weigh it and have some sort of energetic understanding of, okay, how much is this going to take from what I would be using to create this.
It is more difficult, I suppose, when your income is more sporadic. If you're self-employed and running your own business, and all of a sudden, like even with me, for example, there might be months where I don't earn very much, so then all of a sudden a lot of the work comes in, and I'm like, well, actually, how do I change my spending habits in line with that? It does make things rather more challenging when you're a business owner, doesn't it? Or contractor,
it's very,
or
very
whatever.
challenging.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason that I even signed up with this. Like, okay, there's something about this lifestyle that is not flowing. I don't like this kind of up and down thing, but it's good because it is making me think. Or I did come away with an idea last time of how I could have a potentially second income stream, and that I actually did come away from the last meeting with that idea. Like, okay, wait, this isn't working. What does need to work?
What was that second income stream then? What's your idea? Do you mind sharing?
It helped me.
What was that new income stream then? What was your idea?
Oh yeah, okay, I don't
need to share if you don't want
to. The name is idea director, because I'm very good at I can see the big vision of projects. Like this is I think really a strength of mine. I can understand where somebody is, how they can present themselves, what is important moving forward, how they can position themselves. And so I ended up teaming up with a dear friend of mine who works on websites, and she does all the things that I don't like, all the super details, client hand holding, but she's not very good on the design and the vision. So we said, let's combine forces, and we already have a couple of clients. So that feels like this is a dream. I get to do what I want and then step out. So I'm like, woohoo.
That's so key, isn't it? Knowing what you're not good at and then delegating those tasks.
Yes.
Yeah, Jay Shetty talks a lot about working on your...
Exactly. I don't think sorry, Natalie, what?
I said Jay Shetty talks a lot about working on your
strengths. Say that once more.
I said Jay Shetty talks a lot about working on strengths. Well, not working on your strengths, but embracing your strengths rather than working on your weaknesses. And I think if we all were able to kind of embrace our strengths rather than trying to be good at the stuff that we're not good at, that's so powerful, actually, isn't it? Because there's someone else, if it's something you struggle with, like you, Cyril, and the same with you, there's someone else that's good at that, and let them get on with that, and you focus on what you're here to focus on, you know?
There's another really good book, I don't know if anyone's read this, The 4 Hour Work Week. Someone read that?
Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting people start working 4 hours a week, but it does go on to have a very good point. It's just all about, just as I say, just delegate what you're not so good at, or delegate. The more you can delegate parts of your work, the more time you can free up. Therefore, the more time you've got to do what you want to do. You know, and I think that's the dream, isn't it? And then once you've got that kind of passive income coming in, then you can start reaching that kind of financial independent milestone. So that you're not actually having to work to pay all your bills and things like that. I think that's what obviously we're all trying to get to, isn't it? All trying to achieve. Brilliant, thanks for that. And Claire, what did you have any main takeaways from the last session?
So the values exercise was really good in terms of growth and adventure, and those fit me very well. For me, it's working through on that growth bit about how much I spend on courses and professional development, particularly because my business is so new, it's 6 months in, and kind of how to keep a check on that spend and get most value from it, rather than going, oh, there's another one, I need that one, I need that one. I need to kind of really milk the resources that I've got as much as possible.
Small incremental changes.
Yeah.
Brilliant, amazing. And then Louise.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, actually, I think for me it was that kind of, you know, that whole thing about time for money, and how much of your life you're prepared to give up, and how much are you prepared to charge out for that and stuff like that, and that all comes for me down to kind of self-value, self-worth, and all of those things, and then that comes back round to how that aligns with your values at the end of the day. So it was really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed the values exercise and looking at actually what came out for me, and how I'm honoring those in my world, and stuff like that. That kind of really resonates to me massively. So brilliant. Thank you for that. I enjoyed that a lot.
It's all about just building up those habits, really, isn't it? The more you get used to thinking that way, the more it just becomes habit, isn't it? You just start doing it whenever you're out buying stuff. You're thinking, oh, do I actually need this? I think I gave the example of a magazine. You know, is that really in line with my values and my life purpose at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
trying to get into that mindset.
What you guys were talking about in terms of the consumerism, and how the pandemic has kind of challenged that in some ways. I think that's been really interesting. I think people are starting to think, oh, actually, do I actually really need that? Is it just another thing? And particularly where people's finances have perhaps been under a bit more pressure for one reason or another, I think it is causing people to just sort of have a double question around stuff like that, which is really, really interesting to notice.
Definitely. Brilliant. Thanks very much. And there is one other person in the room. Your name's coming under as Galaxy. You there?
Far in Galaxy.
I know, all these funny. You there?
Hello, everybody.
Oh,
hello,
hi.
everyone. Hi.
Hello, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
So I am the Galaxy.
Hi there. Okay, morning. What's your name?
Vaheguru.
Oh, hi. Brilliant. Were you here on the last session?
Sorry?
Were you here on the last session?
No, this is the first.
No worries. No worries. Absolutely fine. Do you quickly explain kind of what you brought you here this morning? And a little bit about you?
Sorry?
Do you want to quickly just explain what brought you here this morning and just a little bit about you?
I just joined it, so I missed out on the whole concept. So I can't relate to anything as such right now.
Okay, no worries. I'll just say, so you're aware, we're doing a 4-part money mindset series. The last session, as we've just been discussing, was all on values, and today's on the beliefs that we have around money, the self-limiting beliefs, negative beliefs that we've had as a child, and how we can go about counteracting those. And then we've got thoughts and language the next couple of months. So I think leave it there. But if you did want to see a recording of the last month's session, there is one on our YouTube channel, and I'll happily send that through to you so you can kind of catch up, I guess, for the next session next month. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much for revising it for me. Thanks a lot.
That's okay. So I'm just conscious of time because we're already at 25 past, and we've got quite a bit to cover off today. So Natalie, I know you've got some kind of things for us to go through. Do you want to quickly go through them, and we can spend some time doing that?
Absolutely, I can kick us off. So I guess just wanted to start off today by just framing a little bit around kind of beliefs and what a belief is really. So I guess over to you guys in terms of what's your interpretation of a belief versus kind of a thought, for example. Like you know how are those two different?
Isn't a belief a thought that you keep having?
Yeah, that's definitely one definition, definitely. And I think David touched on it earlier as well. A lot of the beliefs are formed in childhood, and actually they're subconscious. Because I always say this, but 95% of us is subconscious. So that really does show how much our beliefs, our kind of upbringing, you know, stuff that we take on from the world becomes how we operate and program and go through the world. And 5% of us is stuff that we're aware of. So a lot of this work is about bringing it from the subconscious to the conscious so that we can then be aware of it, use it, and then change kind of for the positive, if that makes sense. So the first part is kind of like unearthing all of that, which you don't realize is kind of running the show. And this we talk a lot about autopilot, and that's kind of what it is. If we don't kind of think consciously, we're just on autopilot. So we're kind of like, I love the definition or the saying that says a little bit about if you don't decide who you are, then the world will decide for you. Because actually you're just a product of your society, right? So I really like that concept. I think that frames today quite well. So it's almost us unearthing a little bit around what our beliefs were about money growing up. So I've got kind of a few reflective questions for you just to kind of note down or think about or journal on, and then we'll revisit some of those as a group if that's okay. So the first one is, what did you learn about money growing up from your caregivers? So mainly your parents or anyone kind of you're around growing up as a child, because that's a really important part of this. How they modeled their behavior around money is probably what you subconsciously learned. And I will kind of ask for some feedback, but I'll run you through the questions first. And this can be quite a big question because I think some of us don't really haven't maybe thought about this before. So it might be that you want to sit on this after today. So if you want to just kind of reflect on this over a period of time, don't worry if nothing comes up right now, or you might just realize, wow, there's something really big there that I want to kind of dig into a bit more. And the second question is, would you consider yourself an optimistic person when it comes to money? And again, this is about deep-rooted beliefs. And a lot of this sits with scarcity attitude of there's two kind of sides of the fence we sit on with regards to this. It's either kind of a scarcity attitude or a financially abundant mindset. And that's about the fact that you notice kind of what's going out and you're scared of losing money, or you're kind of quite abundant. Financially abundant would mean that you're kind of almost really focusing what's coming in, and that's kind of flowing quite nicely with that relationship and energy around money coming to you. So again, sometimes we can tend to focus on what's going out and have that scarcity attitude. And actually most of us sit in that camp. We'll talk a little bit later about how much we notice things coming into our bank account or a friend buying a coffee, Whereas actually we all see our bills going out every day, every month. We focus on that, you know, which frames how our mindset thinks about money. You know, it's one of those little tasks, is thinking about, you know, when did something come through into your bank account, or when did you get a gift, or when did you get a voucher? All of that, we don't focus on that stuff. And then the final one is, what are your family and friends like? What is their relationship to money like? Because again, it's not just our caregivers, it's kind of the people that we are around, friends, family, the people that we choose to spend our time with. That is subconsciously programming our minds, because their beliefs become ours. Your conversation, it affects you, and then how you kind of go forward in the world, really. So that is a really nice point to reflect on as well. And I'll share at this point my kind of big wow moment with regards to this, and why I do some work in this area. It's because my dad had a very, very kind of strong scarcity attitude with money. He grew up with 5 brothers, and they all lived in a caravan and all shared one bed. And they kind of didn't really couldn't really eat every day unless the boys went out and like killed a chicken and brought it home. And it was very, very kind of very, very working class. And I think, and he's very, very successful businessman now, but he still has that scarcity mindset today. So he still won't, you know, me and David laugh because he won't go on a toll road. He'll go like an hour and a half, like further in the direction that he needs to go to not spend £4. And actually that rules his life, because of the fact that he's so fearful about going back to that place. And you can see how then fear runs his life, because he can't enjoy what he has. So that's kind of running the show. It's running his programming, right? But then me growing up around that, I was very, very, I have to work very, very hard on my relationship with money, because of the fact that that's so ingrained in me to save. And I really, really struggled to like buy myself nice things or kind of reward myself, because of the fact that it's just a big no-no, you know. For me growing up, it was just something you didn't do. So again, that gives you an example of like a very kind of extreme case there, really. But also, what was the relationship between your mum and your dad? Because actually that gender balance is quite an interesting one as well. So if you saw a woman that didn't necessarily have her own money and was reliant on the man, that might affect your own relationship now with money. You know, again, so it's all these little things that might be playing into some kind of subconscious programming here. I'll let you guys kind of feed anything back, anything that has kind of cropped up there with those 3 or 4 questions.
So around the learning about money from your parents, that's something that I've been exploring, especially over the last year. And I recognise that the neighbourhood that I grew up in, that kind of my parents' family as well, is all very much focused on you have to work hard for money. Money doesn't grow on trees, and you know, kind of not really having savings pots. So I'm familiar with that question. The one that stopped me in my tracks was, would you consider yourself an optimistic person when it comes to money? Because I am an optimistic person when it comes to so many things in my life, but not in relation to money. I was like, okay, hang on, this is out of kilter with who I am.
Big difference. There's a big difference there, isn't there, compared to everything else?
Yeah. And certainly I feel that in a lot of conversations at the moment, or kind of habits in terms of watching my bank account during the day, and you know, and as say kind of in a new business that's actually doing really well since the first client that was in at the beginning of January, and so I keep attracting people. It's just like still that okay, and I'll feel more relaxed when I get to here, and it's like I don't need to, I need to pull back. So yeah,
so interesting. It's so interesting. Claire, but it's amazing you've already become aware of that, Claire. That's amazing. You've already reflected on that, you know.
Yeah. Well, so kind of one of the things that I'm working through a mentorship that I'm doing is they've got a concept of when you're networking, or if you're in a sales conversation, you have that money breath, as they call it. It's like, And so I'm sometimes hyper aware of that and trying not to be too pushy. But yeah, it's definitely a work in progress.
Interesting. What were you going to say, David?
Oh no, I was just going to say, so you said you're not a very optimistic person when it comes to money. Have you thought about why that might be? Or is this something that's, you know, just come to you now and, oh God, actually not really comfortable answering that kind of question at the moment?
So I think it comes down to, being really cautious around money going out, and also as a student, kind of bouncing around overdraft and fear that your card would bounce at the checkout. At the moment, you know, I need to get my tires done on my car. My husband's just changed his car, and I'm thinking, well, as a new business, my credit rating is going to be shot, and I won't be able to get a car for this time, and you know, my car will last me, and just little thoughts like that just kind of go, oh, you know, you haven't got enough yet, or you're not where you were. And and even though, I mean, I was, this time last year was in a good corporate job, so regular, stable income, and had really consciously worked on savings at that time, which has been absolutely fantastic in order to launch. But again, it's still watch out for these bits going out. Just be aware of where you're spending the money.
If you think about that though, that's your mind trying to keep you safe. So we go back to like fight and flight, or like our upbringing, you know, almost kind of thousands of years ago, of actually that's just a fear mechanism of actually our mind trying to keep us safe. And I think part of that is recognizing that thought when that comes in, Claire, and saying like, I'm aware of you, but it's okay. I don't need to be worried about this, because actually once we realize that fear response, we can control it. So we take on that thought as our own, and that's the issue, because it's a thought and we think it's true, but actually it's just trying to keep us safe. And if we realize that, that's quite a powerful place to be as an observer.
Yeah, and I think so if I rolled the clock back at that time, you know, I'd had different investments, and so it would be a joy to watch where the investments are going and kind of just track the price of gold, for example. It's like, oh, look where that's going. But once I'd started up that flip to, I have so many months left, I have this time left in my bank account, and I think kind of that pattern had crept in a bit around the fear of, oh my, when will I have to find a job? Will I have to find a job? And then if it just compounds.
Isn't it?
One thing that, sorry Natalie, go on.
No, I was just saying, well done for starting unraveling that, because that's the part of it. Becoming consciously aware of some of this stuff going on is the first step.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned is, I don't know if I've got enough. Have you sat down and thought, well, how much is enough? I.e., how much you actually need as a kind of monetary figure?
Yes, because I'm bouncing around, or kind of, you know, not pushing clients enough to pay enough up front, then I'm sort of sat going, right, come on, let's see it coming through. Or we've got a share a kind of admin guy with my husband, and he's been on furlough, so it's meant that I'm the one who's chasing invoices, but then I'm obsessing about when to send the invoice and not to come across too fast. There's just, this doesn't need to be a thought that crosses my mind, it just needs to be a diary action. or he's back today, so it will be his action.
Because more often than not, whenever I kind of speaking to clients, you know, asking that question, how much is enough for you to live on? You know, whether or not it's now or in retirement, and a lot of people can't answer that question. I certainly can't really. You know, how much do I actually need to live on to live the life that I need? What is that golden figure? And a lot of work goes into just working that number out. Yeah. Because I think I mentioned this in the last call. It's about working out, right, well, do you have enough to live on, or do you not have enough, or do you have too much? And depending on how that conversation goes, then dictates the kind of advice that I give. But that is the first starting point, is trying to figure out that golden number. And so most people wouldn't know what that is. And then, of course, if you know you're on track of that, then that can alleviate some of the other stresses and strains in terms of my expenditure and how much is going out, like you said.
Yeah. And that also gets compounded with marital relationships and beliefs about, how much money comes in, and messy.
There's a lot there, there's a lot there to unpick, and that's why I mentioned the gender balance around your parents as well, because it's really interesting, because some of the time we take on roles that aren't meant for us, because of the fact that men feel this a lot. They're under the pressure of being the caregiver, the breadwinner, and that's just society's stuff. But actually it's about you kind of not taking on some of those beliefs if actually you've got a different dynamic going on with your partnership, so a lot of this is just playing such a big part of how we're operating. It's fascinating. Any other thoughts from you, Lou, or Cyril, around those three questions? And then we're going to talk through a few of those actual kind of big kind of prevalent beliefs and get you to kind of rate a few that might kind of be quite stuck for you personally.
Lou, do you want to go? I feel like I'm hogging the stage here.
After you, Cyril, no worries.
Oh, God. I tried. Okay, I tried. I actually had a breakthrough thought just a few days ago about money, and it could have been, being unearthed by this activity, this class, and my other efforts of trying to align my money story. But I said a new affirmation: money is so much fun.
I love that.
And it was like, oh my God, that's how I want to feel. That's exactly how I want to feel. And even with this wording that feels like a child in a way, it's just so much fun, like that's exactly the kind of relationship that I want. And I mentioned last time about this energy, that I feel like it's energy, but we've been not in this right kind of dance, this kind of relationship. And it's been, for sure, my upbringing is also you have to work super hard, long. And I was like an absolute workaholic for a while, and then now with the pandemic and everything, I'm like almost the opposite now. So I'm trying to figure this all out. But I realized that I don't know what the belief is, but it's just the feeling of like, it's hard. It's like, I gotta say, I gotta think about, don't do that, like all this kind of like bad child sort of thing. And I feel like if I just keep saying it, so I've been doing this every day, like just going, money is so much fun. And it actually is, I think, making already a difference. And I'm like, maybe this is, all that I needed. Like you're saying, this shift. I mean, of course, it's not all that I need, but like this is, it feels like this broke open a barrier that I have never been able to access before.
Yeah, and you are, it doesn't have to be this hard. That's a belief. So the fact that you've just said maybe it shouldn't be this easy. No, it can be this easy, because that's a belief as well. But absolutely, you're reprogramming your mind here, and you're just creating a new neural pathway in your mind around the fact that, do you see what I mean? Almost we are teaching ourselves. So you'll be doing so much with just that one sentence, which is so powerful. And that we'll go on to talk about affirmations, because that one affirmation every day, or every time you have that negative feeling around association with money, reframing that to a positive.
Right.
If we do that then will reconnect that neural pathway in our brain, that it's a positive response rather than a negative response. And that's about repetition. So well done. You don't need us. You've done it on your own.
No. Oh, yes, I do. I'm staying. I don't care if you try to kick me out.
Well done. And what about you, Lou?
Well, it's been really interesting listening to you guys, because I've been like nodding along going, oh yes, yes, and that and the other. And one of the things that I have been working on is this kind of, and I hadn't even realized it was a thing until I really looked at it, was this notion of if you have money, that you're somehow not a nice person, or that kind of weird, and I hadn't really recognized it until it sort of slapped me in the face. Went, oh, hang on a minute. And Cyril, it was interesting because I have a bit of a mantra around, actually, I can be wealthy and still be kind and generous, because of course, the more money we have, the more money we can give.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that perspective shift. And that's one on my list, actually. People that have money are selfish or aren't nice people. So that's actually a really common belief, actually, that a lot of us hold. So we don't allow ourselves to get there.
And actually, it's not true, because the wealthy among us are the most generous, typically.
I love that.
I had that same exact idea that being wealthy, I had this idea that I would be excuse my language, a bitch. And then then I'm thinking about it. Wait, why have I determined that? Who said that? And I can be so, like you're saying, Lou, so much more generous and be coming from such a more prosperous place if I'm wealthy. There's nothing enlightening about being broke, like you have no power, you have nothing. That's when you could be potentially not a nice person, because you're struggling and in the scarcity lack. So I really hear you, Lou, on that one.
One of the things that I've started to do is I've started to put 5% of everything that I earn into an account to give to charity, because I've been in that place in the past where people have been doing amazing fundraising things, and I've gone, I can only really afford to give you £5, but I really wanted to give you 20 or 20, I wanted to give you more. And now I can, because I have this kind of charity fund where I can go, that's amazing, here you go. And it makes me so happy. And exactly what you're saying, Natalie, about really being having great positive vibes about money going out and to great causes and all of that kind of thing. And every time I pay a bill, I'm really grateful, and so all of that stuff. And it's just a complete mindset change. And anyway,
that's fantastic.
A lot to recognize that yourself, and then put in kind of small things, because it's quite deep rooted, some of this stuff. So the fact that you're already thinking those things is really powerful. We can just refine it from there, really. I'm going to read out this list of kind of common deep-rooted beliefs now, and it'd be amazing for you guys to pick the ones that you feel like are relevant to you or resonate with you, or you might say none of them and you might want to write down your own, but I want to bring this to life through kind of getting the words clear, because actually sometimes, and like hypnotherapists will talk about this a lot, but it's something that has been said to you from someone growing up, and it's the phrase or the wording, it is actually quite important here. And I think getting that wording to then counteract that thought is quite important. So that's why I'm gonna kind of almost read you this list through, and we'll probably see each other like nodding like yeah that's a big one. Okay, so the first one is money is the root of all evil. That's a really common, really quite a strong one, but again, that's just goes down in history books and things like that. That's a very kind of a very very damaging belief. This is what Lou mentioned. It's selfish to want a lot of money. And this is a really, really prevalent one, especially I think more recently. I'm just not good with money. And then my family has never had money, or my family has never been rich. And then on the flip side, money is there to be spent. And then I added this one in because it's really, really common one. Money doesn't grow on trees, obviously, which is a really big one that a lot of us have already mentioned. And then I've got one more. It's more important to be healthy than rich. So again, you can see these are different on the different spectrum. So some are kind of counterproductive, that would mean that we'd be very heavy savers, and some are counterproductive in the sense that we'd spend. So depending on where your belief sits on the spectrum, it then will almost kind of control your behavior from there, really. And I wanted to just cover just a few actions that you might see in response to some of these, and then we can almost pick out the ones that are relevant. So a few actions or behaviors around some of these playing out in your life could be being stingy with tipping, judging other people's spending choices. So incessant bartering or negotiating for a better deal. Not charging enough for your services is a really big one because you don't feel like you deserve it. Expecting others to do things for free for you. Going on and on about my parents, how high prices are these days. And claiming that money is really not that important. I think these are really, really interesting, because sometimes some of these little behaviors, because it's all the little behaviors that build up, right? But I think these little things that we're doing and saying is kind of then influencing our reality almost. And the final thing I'd say is just notice how other people around you are with money, because there's constant mirrors here around, like, all of us, around who we're with, engaging with around money. So it's noticing kind of what someone else's relationship with money is telling you as well, because there's constant chances just to kind of just reflect on all of this stuff. And I think with money as an area, I think there's a long way to go with us kind of getting some of this out into the open. There's still, it's one of those big areas that a lot of people hold so much fear around it. And that's why this money mindset topic is so fascinating, because there's so much of it yet to be unearthed that just completely runs us, you know. Any of those that you resonated with, any of them that you wanted to add to the list in terms of deep-rooted beliefs?
You have to work hard to, I think.
Yeah. Money doesn't come easily, like that kind of.
Yeah.
And actually, that's not particularly true.
No.
It's so funny. I'll give you an example. I switched to a low carb diet just after Christmas, and so I'd have eggs and asparagus, and mentioned this to my mum, and the judgment of just like, that's really expensive. It's like, is it really?
Like, but I'm worth it. Yeah, and I'm worth that. You know, I'm worth that, you know.
But it makes things. My husband bought a Ferrari 2 weeks ago, and there's been no comment at all among any of my family. I've mentioned it, and there's no positive comment, there's no negative comment. There's just, it's like, oh no.
Then it's just triggering other people, you know.
And then you kind of go, oh, okay, now I understand. I can see.
Yeah, so interesting, isn't it? And anyone else had beliefs there that you were like, either on the positive or the negative side, but you just thought, yeah, actually that's probably a really big one for me, because this is where the affirmation comes in, and almost like what I want you to do is pick one, and we're going to reframe it, which is kind of what Claire and Cyril just have been doing, and Lou with yours as well. It's about taking one like, I don't deserve money, or something like that, and actually reframing it to a really positive affirmation. That's something that you almost have written on a post-it note around your house, or you have it on your screensaver on your phone, and every time you have a trigger come up or a fear response around money, you say those words to yourself, because that's then the bit we're doing to then you know, almost reprogram kind of what's going on for us, really. What about you, David? Any of those you feel like you resonated with in terms of beliefs? Because I would find it fascinating from your perspective, because you work in this world as well. So again, it's just another kind of lens to look at it through, isn't it?
Oh no, definitely, exactly. I mean, just going on the kind of the money affirmations piece, the simple one that I say to myself is, it's just money.
Yeah.
You know, if I lose money in some weird and wacky investment, or if I've spent money on something that I shouldn't have sport bought or whatever. It's just telling myself it's just money. I will earn that back at some point. This is something that Natalie said at the beginning of the call. You will earn that back. You know, it's gone. Forget about it. Stop worrying about it, because you know, I spend a lot of time kind of trading and things in my spare time, and if you just keep on getting caught up in losses that you've made and stuff, that can really create a lot of anxiety and stress. But if it's gone, it's gone. It's done. You know, you will earn it back at some point in the future. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And that might sound really simple, but over the years, I keep telling myself that it's almost become just second nature now. So that's something I often do.
Yeah.
But that's so simple, isn't it? It's just money.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it is what you put value towards. That's all it is at the end of the day. It's just pieces of paper that you use to go out and get something to eat at the end of the day. Nothing more than that.
But you might
to stop stressing over it.
Being your kind of almost what's the word? Kind of being devil's advocate there, though. You might reframe that at some point, because that could become counterproductive. So again, what my point isn't to you, David, but it's to everyone to say, like, your affirmation is only, it's growing as you grow and evolve, right? So actually you might need to change it if it becomes the reason why, because for you with that affirmation, it could mean that you don't actually ever then go on and save and achieve, because actually then becoming counterproductive. So be aware that you have to change this as long as it's serving. A question, is that still serving me? And if it isn't, we need to like constantly change them, because we are changing as human beings.
That's a good point, actually, isn't it? Yeah, that could be quite damaging in a way, I suppose, if you are so flippant about money at the same time.
About getting the balance, isn't it?
I've not really thought of that. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I mean, I did want to finish actually, because I know we've got about 5 minutes left. Some really simple tips that I take clients through in order to kind of almost go from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. And a lot of these things we've spoken about this morning already. Do people generally keep a journal, or before you go to bed, kind of write down what you're grateful for? So this has been something that I've been doing recently, but a really simple thing would just be writing down 3 things every day before you go to bed or after you wake up about things that you feel grateful that money is giving you, for example.
Yeah.
And in order to kind of almost surround yourself and open doors to new form of abundance. So that might be a really simple tip to start doing. As I say, just spend 5-10 minutes every day doing that. And then also, we've already kind of touched upon this, is just visualize what you want in life. So visualize that new Ferrari, for example. Visualize that big house, or it could be as small as, I don't know, going from walks down the beach. And sometimes I say to clients, well, put a photo of that in your room. And so subconsciously, you'll be working towards that goal. And if you're constantly looking at that, so that's, I don't know, have 3 to 5 photos on your wall about things that you want. And over time, you might end up getting that. You know, I think there was a famous situation where Jim Carrey wrote to himself a check for $10 million or whatever it was, and 10 years later he ended up getting it because he visualized that happening. You're manifesting exactly that happening. So that might be a very, very simple tip.
How you want to feel, which is what Phil was talking about. So not just about the physical material thing, but how do I want to feel? Because actually, if you associate with a feeling, it's easier to then recognize when you've actually, and that will avoid the trap of when you get the house, you want a bigger house, because actually you're focusing on feeling, and that's quite powerful, I think, with that.
Definitely. And then a couple of other ones that we've already spoken about this to some great length, but positive money affirmations, we said that already. But also one thing that's, I'm not sure who picked this up, but I'm not good with money. Who was it that said that?
That was one of the beliefs, I think.
One of the beliefs. Okay. I think that comes down to learning, say to people, how confident are you with finance and markets and investing? Because if you're not confident with that, and if you don't think you're good with money, well, how can we go about changing that? And it's about learning new money terms and learning these things. And this is the whole reason for doing these kind of courses, right? Not necessarily the money mindset, but learning the tips and techniques on where to start investing and the basics of that. And obviously that's something I can support people with, but the more you know and understand how to do something, the more you're going to do it. It's like being good at sport. You know, if you're suddenly really good at tennis, you're going to start playing more tennis, aren't you? So the more you can get immersed in this, the more you can actually start dabbling with new ways of growing and earning money, the more it becomes almost second nature, the easier that's going to become. And therefore you start to rewind that and actually say, well, no, I am good with money now. And then it just starts compounding, doesn't it? And your wealth starts to grow. And obviously that's a big part of what I do. So learning new money terms, I'd say would be a good one. And that could be as simple as just, I don't know, reading a financial paper, or just having a look on some websites, Hargreaves Lansdown, for example, and just learning new terms every day and just building up that knowledge and just getting more comfortable with that kind of stuff. That makes
me think of fake it till you make it, which I love, because actually fake it till you make it is what we're talking about. It's almost kind of like acting as you know, because then you're standing in that power, and then you're kind of almost just calling for a different energy there. So it's almost saying I'm an expert, even if you're not, because actually that's quite a powerful.
That's exactly it. Yeah, just immerse yourself into that kind of world as much as you want, and the more you do that, more, just as I say, it just becomes second nature. So there we go. Learning new money terms, positive money affirmations, visualization, and journaling. 4 top tips there. And with that, we're bang on 9 o'clock. So was there anything anyone else wanted to mention before we close off?
No, just really helpful again, lots of value. Thank you. It's just, there's just going through this together as a group and going, okay, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much. It's really lovely to just travel this with you guys. It's fun.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly an hour goes.
Can I ask what? Yes. What the focus is next week, that I can even think about it?
Yeah. They think thoughts. So thoughts. Yeah, which is really interesting with belief, because thoughts is the more conscious element. So thoughts we're consciously aware of, whereas beliefs we're not consciously aware of at all. So it'll be the thought and understanding our mindset, which we've kind of covered a bit, but we'll talk a little bit about mindset tools around thoughts, and it'll be a lot similar around reframing, but again, we're working with that conscious element of ourselves rather than the subconscious.
Thoughts, and then the last one is language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah.
So like we did last time, I'll send everyone just a synopsis of today and then all the login details for the next session. But thanks so much for logging in and getting on, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Lovely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.